Ren Butler, Director, Applied Innovation and Business Education, the Camel Collective. And then our panelists, Cranston Sy Hawkwinder, Founder, Consult Cranston, Tim Nevin, Principal of the Galilee School, and Ricky Schmidt-Karregard, CEO of the Science Club. Please welcome them to the stage. Okay, so the microphones are right in front there, and they should be on.
Wherever you're most comfortable. We still appear to be missing one.
Cranston, yes.
The team, I checked with the team and they said they had, and they said that he was downstairs. I went and tried to have a peek, but he wasn't. We'll get started and riff a little bit, but not get into the meat of it until.
Do you want to start with a bit of an introduction?
Yeah, we'll start with introductions and hopefully he'll be materialized by then. The team swore they saw him. Hello, welcome, and thank you so much for staying for this very last session of day 3. We know it's been a long and intense 3 days in a really good way. So I'll be moderating today, but just real quick before we jump into introductions, I wanted to say we are sadly one person short. The person who was supposed to be moderating, Dr. Safia Al-Shabani, was struck down and not feeling well, so that is why she's not able to join us today. It is a real shame, though, because I was lucky enough to have lunch and some great conversation with her yesterday. She is just an absolute wealth of knowledge in this particular space, actually having 3 degrees spanning a Bachelor's of Science, a Master's, and then actually even a PhD in entrepreneurship from a Western Australian university. So we would have had even more Australians representing on stage. Despite my accent, I do actually live in Australia and have for the last 12 years. So that's the majority of my perspective that I bring to this topic. My name's Ren Butler. I build and run entrepreneurship and commercializing innovation programs. Majority are for more mature and established startups, but I was actually also a field science teacher in a previous life, so we've got a few things in common, myself and Ricky, and I'm super excited to be moderating this topic, and we will be speaking about not just academia from a university sense, but spanning all the way through to even primary school age, and the importance of linking startups, new ventures, and the concepts of entrepreneurship through to, from the education journey through to actual venture creation. So I've been teaching and facilitating in this space for a little over 9 years. So first off, I'd love to introduce directly to my left, Dr. Ricky Kiergaard. I won't, hopefully won't butcher it too much more. She's a scientist and has worked as a scientist at prestigious universities, including University of Cambridge and Harvard Medical School. Her research area covers science communication, molecular animation, and data visualization. And in 2017, she actually left academia to found the Science Club in Denmark, which she is still the CEO, and has also recently won a very prestigious award that was granted by the Queen of Denmark, and she is one of only 15 people to have ever won this Amalienborg medal for her work with that science club, which we will be hearing a lot more about, and we're very excited for. She's also an author of an autobiography about her time fighting bacterial meningitis and basically her entire body breaking down and having to heal from that and build herself back up. That book is called The Blink of an Eye, if you're interested in reading it and finding it. Do you want to go from there? And then I'll do Tim next. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ren. I am the founder and the CEO of the Science Club, as Ren told you. But I actually want to tell you a bit about my motivation and what drives me. So meaningfulness drives me. Paying it forward drives me. My story, I want to share this very personal story with you. I used to be a scientist, as Ren said, and suddenly, 10 years ago, I was struck with bacterial meningitis. So within 12 hours, I went into a coma. I was rushed to the hospital. My heart stopped in the ambulance. My children, I have 3 children, they were set to say goodbye. The doctors at the hospital thought that I would most certainly die. I was in a coma for about 10 days. I had multi-organ failure. I had sepsis. I had, you name it, that you can die of. Hundreds of blood clots all over my body, a large hematoma in the front of my brain. So, life was over. I started, miraculously, to wake up after 10 days. And there's no Hollywood moments when you wake up from a coma. It's very slow. It takes weeks to wake up. When I finally woke up properly, they had told me over and over again where I was, what had happened, and so on and so forth. They thought I was severely brain damaged, which was even worse for my children to hear, because what kind of mom would they have after this? So when I woke up and I finally could sense that I was here, I had locked-in syndrome. That is, I was only able to blink. And that was how I communicated for 3 months. Finally, I got to the rehabilitation center. I could still not move anything in my body. And I started rehabilitation. Training, training, training. There was one way, and that was forward. So I trained for about a year, and then I came back to the university as an associate professor. And I thought, what am I doing here? I needed to do something meaningful. I needed to pay it forward. I felt it as a duty. So that's why I created the Science Club in Denmark. So that's my motivation, and now it's a successful non-profit organization. We are national now, and we want to go abroad. So if anybody wants to hear about this and take it to your own country, please let me know. I'll be very happy to help with that. What it does is that we have 4th, 5th, and 6th graders coming to an after-school club. It's like taking football lessons or musical lessons. You just go to science. The only demand is that you're curious as a child. We don't want children who necessarily gets high grades. We want them to be curious. If you're curious, you're welcome. So it's for everybody. We don't have grades. The unique thing about this is that it's peer-to-peer education. So we have high school students volunteering to teach and be with, have fun with these children in an after-school club. 1 week or 1 day every week for 7 weeks. And they love it. So this is what the Science Club is. And please let me know if you want to bring it to your country, because it's great.
That's fantastic. Yep. Thank you so much. And I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more detail and hopefully get some stories about some of those amazing, I hate the term light bulb moments, but aha moments that you have with students, especially students that don't necessarily thrive in a classroom setting, but have, when they're connected to those actual hands-on and real-world application kind of opportunities, it can be an absolute game changer to them. So I think that's a good transition actually to talk about Tim's background. So Mr. Tim McNevin is also here to join us. He has led the Galilee School in Canberra, Australia for little over 7 years actually as their principal, and has had a career in education spanning over 25 years, including that time at the Galilee School. His experience includes management training in business, government, education, as well as not-for-profit sectors, working in leadership and management across a very diverse range of industries. And he's also the founder and owner of his own business that he started 12 years ago, and is also successfully running on top of his obligations as a principal as well. I don't know how you do it. His qualifications in higher education, and has also been a lecturer in the areas of management and operational service, really with a focus on service design and hospitality and experiences. He's passionate about working with people and teams to really help them identify their goals clearly and reach them in whatever way is necessary. And he really believes in the power of entrepreneurship to address and unlock so many of the challenges that communities and individuals are facing in the world today. And I think he'll tell us a bit more about the Galilee School and how that actually does play quite centrally in his personal mission around leveraging entrepreneurship to empower individuals in communities of all sorts to leverage entrepreneurship to solve the problems that matter to them. Over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Ren, and good afternoon again to you all, and thank you for being here. I've told you a little bit about Galilee School, and to supplement that and to connect with this panel, my first comments would be that success looks different for each young person. And so our motivation for establishing and supporting models that encourage and equip young people to pursue, at least inquire or ask questions with regards to entrepreneurship and perhaps establishing and designing their own business, is to give them another alternative to post-school pathways. As I've shared with you before, the young people that come to Galilee School have come struggling to find success in mainstream education, and the turnaround that's required to put them on a pathway to success and to establish hope for the future is a long and deliberate journey that takes time and is built on relationship. Having encouraged them to reconsider their future, we also need to acknowledge that there's sometimes a harsh reality that's present in that future. Some of the experiences that our young people have journeyed through, we can regard as adverse childhood experiences and can be summed up in a category of experience called trauma. And we know that trauma impacts the developing mind of young people, and all of us have probably experienced trauma of one form or another, but our young people have experienced multiple experiences of trauma in a relatively short period of time. And so the cumulative effect of that trauma on their brain leads them to respond and react to society and the expectations of society in challenging ways. So the reality for some of those young people will be post-school. Their capacity to engage in further education may be limited. Equally, their capacity to work for somebody else may also be limited because they have damaged ideas of power and control. And so anyone in a position of authority, they oftentimes collide with. And so our primary motivation in generating an entrepreneurship pathway for the young people at Galilee School, and it's not for everybody, as I said, success looks different for every young person, is to open up this third pathway. This idea that perhaps I can work for myself. Perhaps I can design a business that I'm passionate about. But more importantly, we encourage our young people to take up a model of social enterprise. That the design of their business, we encourage them to target towards the identification and addressing of a real-world problem that is relevant to them. And it's that relevance to them that is the power of the model that we are pursuing. And so we've partnered with a number of organisations, both locally and internationally. Our two primary partners is a wonderful not-for-profit called the Academy of Entrepreneurs. They are an international NGO that work in countries all around the world doing exactly what we at Galilee are endeavouring to do, to ignite this passion, this opportunity and self-belief in the hearts and minds of young people that there are solutions to local problems and that those solutions can be found in the business models that young people can create. So we're incredibly grateful to the Academy of Entrepreneurs for partnering with us. In Canberra also, the ACT government has been very deliberate to try to establish the ACT, or Canberra, as a hub for entrepreneurship in Australia. And the Canberra Innovation Network is designed to bring together and to establish collaborative environments where new businesses, established businesses and startups can come together, nurture, support, encourage and equip each other. And one of the business units of the Canberra Innovation Network is an organisation called Millhouse Ventures. And they are specifically designed around promoting and encouraging and equipping social enterprises in Canberra. And so our two primary partners are the Academy of Entrepreneurs and Millhouse Ventures. We start in Year 7, and our Year 7 to 8 program is called My First Business. And the objective there is for every young person to generate their first $100 in whatever business they wish to activate. And all young people are encouraged to participate. It's not mandatory, but they're encouraged. And then our Year 9 and 10 program is called Boss Your Future. And what we do there is equip them and give them the skills to develop business plans, ecological maps, and design thinking principles applied to the real world problem that that young person is interested in. And at the end of Year 10, we run a pitch event where those young people are pitching their ideas to a qualified panel of experts. And then in Year 11 and 12, those young people that want to take those ideas forward are then put into a business incubator environment within and partnering with Millhouse Ventures, where our ambition and our goal is to actually take their product, their business to market and equip them to leave Galilee School with a operating, functioning business model. We're in early stages of the program, but already we've seen tremendous benefit and fruitfulness from these partnerships, and unlocking the potential that exists in these young people is powerful to be a part of.
It's music to my ears to hear that you're actually baking it into curriculum that young, because I was actually quite surprised, but then also disappointed a couple of years ago when I put together a pitch to do a PhD through a university in my state, I won't say which one, and by no fault of the leadership there, unfortunately I wasn't able to get it off the ground because it required the School of Education and the School of Business to basically collaborate and co-chair as my advisors, and that made me dead in the water. That was not feasible. But I was really happily surprised to find out that it is actually in the core Australian curriculum that teachers are supposed to be teaching to and exposing their students in all schools in Australia to the basic principles of simple entrepreneurship. what unfortunately happens is, because of the myriad constraints that I'm sure are not unknown in this room and have been talked about on this stage the last 3 days, it just isn't really feasible. And what ends up happening is it's almost only exclusively brought about and extended to the more affluent schools, and a lot of times it's tied to and expected to be part of some kind of computer and or tech class, which then automatically limits even more for schools that, say, don't have those kinds of that kind of equipment, or don't have teachers that can teach that kind of subject. And it really shouldn't be. It needs to be simple and started early so that those students have the access to it. And there's also a lot of the same principles that would be exposed in Science Club, because at the end of the day, it's a lot of times when I explain to people my experience and background, they look at me funny because they say, you're a field science teacher back in the States and then came and did a master's in Australia, and now you teach remedial startups, or to startup methodology and the process, which is the fun, messy part, scary, messy part, to adults who I lovingly a lot of times call them corporate escapees or recovering corporates. And so many times it turns into just reviving scientific method 101 for adults who haven't done that for such a long time, because that's the best way to pull them out of this is how it's done. You just rush into developing the product and getting investment and pushing it on a market, whether or not they say they want it or not. And almost always the principles come back to and are in some way, shape, or form related to that core scientific method of what's your hypothesis, what does a null hypothesis look like. And I have a love-hate relationship with the F word. The F word in my book is not the four-letter one that a lot of people don't like. It's failure, because you didn't fail, you just didn't support your hypothesis, or you supported your null hypothesis, and you still learn from that. A lot of times you learn more from that than just sauntering into a quick win and assuming that your market and those assumptions will scale, because that can get very expensive when it doesn't. So with that, would just like to define, I'm assuming that we're just gonna trudge ahead on. If Cranston shows up, we'll tap him in, but in his absence, we'll unfortunately have to proceed. So real quick, just so that everyone here and anyone who might be listening at home is on the same page, one of the things I find a bit confusing and frustrating about this topic is sometimes the definitions of a small business, a startup, and even entrepreneurship can be a bit murky and can be a bit used interchangeably. So I'm just going to kind of define those terms real quick, and if you two have anything else to add to it, please be my guest. So a small business, I mean, there's a technical definition in almost every jurisdiction and country for statistical purposes, but typically it's a business of 20 or maybe even 50 employees, like full-time employees or under, or sometimes it's counted by the turnover of the business in monetary terms, but we'll use the term small business for a traditional business that is something that there's lots of out in the market, and if you said at a dinner party or a afternoon barbecue, oh, I have a so-and-so business, it does this, nobody would look at you funny and say, is that a thing? It's not, it's very honorable and good to have a solid, solvent, small to medium-sized business. There's absolutely no shame in that, but it's very different than a startup. So a startup and you can have a small business that's in its first year, or its 5th year, or its 50th year. A startup is, for the conversation we're having today, is not just a small business in its first year or two. It's a business that is starting with its first, small pot of money, and maybe even just 2 or 3 founders. Maybe you have 1 or 2 employees, part-time or otherwise, and you're trying to take on a big challenge, a challenge that nobody's really done before in your market or in the market that you're heading towards, and you're solving a real problem in a new and different and dynamic way, and really aiming to have a scaled impact. Whether or not that's scaling the revenue or scaling the impact or both is, up to however the founding team defines the challenge, but it's really trying to leverage innovation as much as possible to scale the impact of what their mission is. And then entrepreneurship more broadly is just a definition of starting a venture. It could be a not-for-profit organization, it could be a for-profit, it could be a new business line within an existing traditional organization, sometimes referred to as entrepreneurship, but it's basically just the overarching term of seeing an opportunity and wanting to create a solution for it from sort of seemingly nothing or very minimal resources, and that uphill battle. And it's more targeted at individuals than the organization itself. So do you want to add anything to that?
I would like to add something. So I completely agree with your definitions, and it is difficult to distinguish. It really is. I would say that the Science Club is a startup in collaboration with academia, because what I didn't tell you before is that coming from a scientist background myself, I engaged different researchers, scientists, to work out the programs for this Science Club. So what we say is that the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, they become mini scientists, we call them. So they're entering a program where, well, it's built on recent academic knowledge. They get to do open-ended experiments, like Ren just said, that it's okay to be a failure. But you have to ask yourself, why did it fail? And try to get results out of that. So they make a hypothesis, they make the experiments, and maybe it fails, maybe it doesn't, and they try to figure out why was that. So we work closely with academia, we work closely with scientists, and we get the newest knowledge to the children, and they love it. We have a program, for example, about primatology. They get to be primatologists. They get to work with primates, and they love it. They get home, having dinner with their family, talking about apes and monkeys and their skulls and how they're different. Things like that. They love it, and they are small sponges, so we should just get out there. The more the merrier to do things like this.
And the only other thing I'd add, Ren, is I think it's also a mindset. And I think that has been so evident across this 3 days of conference. The number of businesses of various sizes and scales who have sought to address a problem or an issue or make the most of an opportunity. And I think it's that mindset that entrepreneurs and innovators, business owners take on courageously that shifts them and the society within which they live. And if we can provoke and promote that in the minds and hearts of our young people, I think there's a powerful impact that can be generated from that.
Definitely. That reminds me of a quote that's near and dear to my heart and technically foot, because I have it written on my body. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing's going to get better. It's not. And I never realized the sort of almost inkblot test of that. It's one of the sort of, not punchline, because it's not a funny book, but it's from the Lorax. And when I was a science teacher in California, we actually had a lot of the parents that were chaperoning on the field science trips we ran tell us it was horrible that we had a whole sort of campfire, like interactive Lorax thing that we did with the kids. And the parents said, "That's horrible. Why do you teach that book? It's so doom and gloom and sad." And most of us were really taken aback because we were like, we don't get that from that book. And the parents and even some of the kids interpret that as, well, throw your hands up in the air then. Like, everything's, broken and there's nothing that can be done. This is the system we inherited, so this is the world we have. Can't fix it. And it's really the kids and adults that see, something is wrong and have a really strong desire to want to do something about it, whether that's in business or society or, natural resource use, aka the environment, and really, go full steam ahead on trying to solve it. And no matter how much friction they might get and how much they're told they're crazy and it can't be done. For true entrepreneurial minds, that a lot of times only fuels you more. So with that, I'll give you guys the sort of core question. We've got a little over 10 minutes on the clock to go, but we'll probably also have a little bit of time at the end for questions. From your experience, or even just your, very experienced brains, what policies and initiatives do you think could be implemented to create a more inclusive and supportive environment for students, ranging from primary through to academia, to learn or be exposed to entrepreneurship? And from what experience, or in your experience, what age or grade level do you see the most sort of impact and benefit?
It's a big question, and one that would probably provoke a long answer, but I'll avoid that. From a personal perspective, a couple of things have been pivotal to my journey as a business owner, and I think I'll start there. As Ren said, I've established and run a coaching and consultancy business for 12 years, and a pivotal moment for me was 14 years ago when I was in my home one evening, and I'd been doing a bit of thinking, and I turned to my wife and I said, "I think I want to become a life coach." And without hesitation, her response was, "You should do that. You'd be good at that." Now, that may sound inconsequential, but it's pivotal in that it was the authorising environment that I needed, because I knew the commitment that I was going to require for that initiative, or a little bit of it. I now know a lot more about it. But I needed the permission to do that. And so much of the policy environment that we work in does not give us permission. And so we need an authorising environment to give us permission to innovate, be creative, and do things differently in our school and educational environments. Bringing it forward now to the program at Galilee School, what we learned was we can't assume that our teachers are equipped or confident enough to lead these programs. And so we first, if we want to create an environment in our schools where these programs are embraced and taken forward, we need to equip and empower our teachers and our staff with the skills, knowledge, and confidence to be able to lead these programs. And so we really need to put the architecture in place in a proactive and deliberate way to ensure that our school environments and our education environments are equipped to take these things forward. And the third experience, which is both personal and professional, is what impacted me so much when I started my own business journey was the support and encouragement that established business owners gave me. Their generosity of spirit, their willingness to share, their understanding of my journey, because they'd been there before, was so humbling to me, but so powerful for me. It gave me access to resources and people and encouragement and mentoring and support and wisdom that allowed me to navigate so many of the pitfalls, challenges and obstacles that business owners encounter, particularly in those early stages of their journey. And so we need to quote a term that we've heard previously these days, we need an ecosystem that is willing to step in and provide support, encouragement, mentoring, assistance and wisdom to business owners of any age, so that they too can feel encouraged, supported and protected from the pitfalls and challenges that business ownership can present to us.
Maybe I can add just a little bit to that. And for your question, how early can we start? I believe, and maybe Tim, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you can start as early as possible, because we know that by third grade, they have already decided what they want and what interests them. And if we can get an interest for entrepreneurship in earlier than that, that's great. So I believe as early as possible.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's it's a really good point. If we think about, at least from like my Western cultural experience, and I grew up in an area of the U.S. that is very high pressure. I was never particularly academically gifted. My sister was always that one. My family was amazed that I even finished my undergrad degree, and my grandmother might or might not have bribed me with a trip to the Galapagos, which was good motivation. And I saw George before he passed away. When do you start asking kids what they want to be when they grow up? Which we shouldn't do that full stop, but we should ask them what they want to do, what they want to contribute to. Then towards the end of your pre, if you're going to go to the tertiary track, your A-levels or your SATs or ACTs or whatever the testing regime in the States is now. I push that out of my brain because I have enough other trauma to process. And that sort of critical crossroads, in that it's typically in a year 10 to 11 sort of stage. And then even in that first year or two of university, if you're going that path, you have to declare a major and decide what all your subjects are. One of the things I think that's happening, I see in the university system in Australia, and I think some of the other systems that I've spoken to folks about in this over the last few days, is entrepreneurship finally coming out of the business school and not just being seen as its own major and almost synonymous with MBA or pre-MBA, but something that actually should be an addition to or sit on the side as a supplement to any other degree. Entrepreneurship needs to be understood, especially in a university environment, as a addendum to whatever the actual core curriculum is that they're learning, just like there should also be a professional skills development track. I've had a lot of really interesting conversations with folks over the last few days about that, because that is at its core what it is, and the landscape that even I went into after my undergrad and my master's, and I graduated from my master's in 2014, so it's not that long ago, it's already a vastly different job and commercial landscape than it was back then, only barely a decade ago. So the fact that we're not exposing students to these opportunities and ways to actually apply and implement all of this amazing knowledge, experience, and confidence that they're hopefully getting in their entire education journey is just really falling short, not just for the students themselves, but for the communities they're then going back to hopefully share the fruits of all of their hard work from that educational journey.
Can I add just one tiny comment to that? I absolutely agree about the not asking children what they want to become. Instead, I think we should ask them, what are you curious about? And later on, what are you passionate about? I think we get much better results from that.
Definitely. So I think that actually starts to answer the last quick question that we have, and then we'll open to any floor questions. What strategies do you think educational institutions can employ to actually help bridge that gap between classroom knowledge and an actual real-world application in the context of entrepreneurship?
I think I'll just keep my answer short, and it's the partnership with industry. I think we assume so much that teachers in schools or teachers in education institutions have all the skills that they need to deliver all of the subjects and all of the expectations that society...
With all of their free time.
Exactly. With all of the expectations that society and community places on them, and I think it's a false assumption. Teachers are amazing people with deep skills in oftentimes specific areas. So we need to partner with industry, people whose expertise is different to those of teachers, so that we can supplement the pedagogical skills that teachers have with the entrepreneurial and business skills that business owners and entrepreneurs and the business sector has, and so we can broaden the range and depth of experience that our young people can be exposed to, and as I say, they can journey with more mentors on that journey of business ownership.
I very much agree. Schools cannot and should not bear the responsibility by themselves. We need to partner with the industry, definitely.
Fantastic. And we're just about at time, but I think we wouldn't be doing the few dedicated souls in this room justice if we didn't open the floor to maybe one or two questions. If anyone has any, please step forward. There's a mic in the middle of the room. Not all at once. Calm down. I was going to say, I think I'm going to go into teacher mode here now and flip the script a little bit and say, we're not going to finish until I ask a question and at least one person from the room stands up and answers it. Because I'm curious. From the folks in this room, what is the most interesting and applicable thing to not necessarily entrepreneurship, but empowering your students, be they little humans all the way up to larger, more time on clock humans, empowering them to actually take knowledge and bring it out into the real world and put it into application. If that's into their own business, that's great. Yay, entrepreneurship. But if that's even in a job or in a future academic career, it's also amazing. What's one thing you might have learned about?
I think the ability to appreciate. That's what do the break.
Can you expand on that? So the answer was the ability to appreciate. Appreciate what?
Well, everything they do. I mean, you give them small tasks. Once done, you appreciate like they have achieved wonders.
So appreciate the students and the effort and yeah, so being a champion, not just for their ability to absorb knowledge, but actually, and analyze and do something with it, not just mimic it for the test and then dump it out of their brain. Yeah, so I think that's a really good note to finish on. So the ability to really nurture, and there's a phrase that I love, and it ties actually well with the panel before us. Encourage effort, not outcome. The panel before on gifted and nurturing gifted students really was quite touching to me, and I think that's so true 10 times over in an entrepreneurial mind, be it a young one in a school setting or even older folks in their first, second, fifth business. That it's about the effort. It's about being almost insanely curious about trying to solve a problem and the landscape of that problem, so that you can really weather those bumps that you will find along the way. And that's education. If it was easy, everyone would graduate school and go on and do exactly what they wanted. So making sure that we're really giving the time and effort to the students that we have the pleasure of teaching, even on the not so hard days. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the organizers.
Fantastic. Let's have our photo. It's your moment to shine. Step forward, everybody. Let's give our last panelists another round of applause. Fantastic. Okay, now sadly enough, everybody, we're wrapping up already. Can you believe that these 3 days have just flown on by? Now, just before we totally, completely wrap up, can everybody stand on up and come right down to the stage, and we're all going to have a group photo of everybody who's in here. And you'll all have some nice memories, and you will post it, and you will use the hashtag. Who remembers what the hashtag is? There we go. Well done. Well done. Did you get it right too? Yes? Copy and pasted? Okay, great. Education to Conf. Education to Conf, everybody, is our hashtag. And of course, make sure that you connect on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and also on Instagram. Come on over. Come on up, everybody. If there are some people left seated, come on up. We have some people on the ground. It's definitely school photo time for sure. His family is over here. So you can come back over this way if you like.